Hey y'all, good morning. This is your man Sabir Aleem and welcome to Daddy's Right. Yes, it is a beautiful day in the neighborhood in sunny Riviera Beach, Florida. 81 degrees yesterday. Spent about an hour down at the beach chilling. Did my pump and run. Back in the flow with that. Been off for a couple of months. Found myself getting fluffier, sucking down all these carbs and just I'm on vacation this week, so I'm getting even fluffier. So between Thanksgiving and now, man, I feel like you can just stick your finger in my stomach and I'll laugh like the Pillsbury Doughboy. But yeah, so I'm back in the flow again, and it's a struggle, man. For all of us. I don't care how physically fit you are. I don't care how devoted and committed you are to staying healthy and going to the gym and things like that. Once you don't go for a few days, man, a few days turns into weeks, then they turn into months, and that's pretty been for me. And I can't use the excuse that I've been working on a lot of projects and be tired, because at the end of the day, that's just what it is. It's an excuse. It's an excuse that I give myself to just not go today. And at the end of all of that, I suffered because I feel like somebody whooped my behind. I spent about 3 hours in yesterday. Did an hour of some cardio on the treadmill. Uh, did some other weight training, and I'll be back there today. See, once I get started and I feel that pain, it's nothing like that pain and the tightness of the muscles that kind of gets my juices going. And once that feeling is back, I'm in it. So that's what my flow is going to be right after this show. Going in because I got to get back and watch football, right? Because again, that'll be another excuse. Man, the game coming on. I'm going to go after the game. Games don't go off nowadays to what? 8, 9, 10, 11 o'clock. And it's another day, going by. So try to take at least an hour out of every day to do something to uplift, to improve, to further develop yourself. Whether it's physical fitness, whether it's reading, whether it's meditation. Listen, you got to take care of yourself physically, mentally, and spiritually. So every day there should be at least 1 hour committed to addressing those areas. It doesn't have to be all of them in that same time period. It could be just one of those areas, but you have to commit to that, because there are a lot of people, man, suffering in silence because of the stigma of illness, and people hear illness and they, I don't want to hear about that. The thing is real, man. Depression, anxiety is something that I've dealt with all of my life. I've learned over the years how to manage it. So do whatever you have to take, man, to get yourself, in alignment. In alignment. So you got to get in alignment spiritually. You have to get in alignment mentally and physically, right? And I know today is your day for some of you to get that spirit in alignment and get to moving to church this morning. So hopefully you'll get a chance to enjoy the show this morning before going to church. If not, check this out. After the sermon, come on back, put your feet up, chill, and watch this show. And bring some guests with you. It's always fun to watch shows and learn some things about yourself and be able to have some open dialogue in the family, because that's one of the things that's really missing. I was having a conversation the other day with someone, and that's what I was talking to them about. We shut children down so often. Sometimes we don't give them the credit that they're due in terms of them understanding life at their age a lot more than we think. At that age, that's life. At 5, that's life at 5. Life at 5 looks like this for me. Life at 12 looks like this for me. Life at 17, and so on and so forth. And with all the societal attachments to what should or should not be happening at those ages, it makes life even more difficult, more complicated for the child, right? Because we keep trying to impose our current condition upon them at that age, and what we tend to tell ourselves is, well, I was 5 before, I was 12 before, I was 15 before. right? Well, you were, but I'm not you. I'm not you. And I'm not going to handle life situations necessarily the same way you would, unless you've had just that much of influence upon me, for me to do so, which is the flip side of that coin. Because if your influence upon that child is ingrained in misinformation, trauma, pain, and suffering of your own life's challenges, then you're putting that upon the child. The child internalizes that, and the child in turn passes that on. So there are always bits and pieces that we take on from our caretakers, and then it's the other stuff that we get from outside of the home. But having open communication is so important. Having the ability to come to my parents and to have a conversation about anything, man, listen, best thing since sliced bread. But I didn't have that. And a lot of children do not have that. And then we sit and we ask, well, what's wrong with you? Well, why does something have to be wrong with me? Another stigma that we place upon children. Or y'all get to those years, or y'all start smelling yourselves and you start acting. I'm coming into myself. Let me come into myself the same way you did. Let me learn things. Let me ask questions. Let me figure out what I want to be when I grow up, instead of you telling me what I want to be when I grow up. Let me see my own physical appearance from my own perspective, as opposed to you telling me what I look like. You got to really start looking at those things. Last week, we were talking about teenage romance and how specific ages begin to look at love, romance, intimacy, certain things that happen along the way. And, this is critical for where children go in terms of how they establish relationships with others. And it always comes back to you, the caretaker. What you say to them about these things that present, how you react, how you respond. Your reaction, because your first reaction has nothing to do with them, but has everything to do with you. Your very first reaction, your facial expression will tell that child where this is about to go. That's what's going to happen. It's going to tell that child where this whole thing is about to go. The last sentence from the article, and I'm going to go back to the article. So the article is on raisingchildren.net.au. Suitable for 9 to 18 years, teenage relationships, romance, and intimacy. This is a website that I go to often when researching certain subject matter regarding children. There's a lot of good information. It's actually based in Australia. Wherever you are, these things are relative. Doesn't matter if it's in Europe, if it's in Africa, if it's in Indonesia, if it's in the Ivory Coast. The Ivory Coast, it really doesn't matter. So you have to look at all these things. And when we're talking about sexuality, it's the same for everyone. It's the outside influence that guides the thinking, which ultimately leads to that conditioning of how I see myself sexually. My romantic relationships are influenced. Everything about my life is influenced by mostly external things. Therefore, it's important that you're part of that external resource and that external guidance when children are asking you for that information. And when a child asks, you answer. You don't tell a child, well, we're not going to talk about that right now, because they're going to get that information from somewhere else. They're going to ask little Johnny, little Mary sitting in the classroom with them. They're going to ask them, and they're going to get the answers from them. And that's what they're going to ride off of. That's what they're going to ride off of. And then you're going to be sitting back later on looking like, Maybe I should have told him when he asked, but it's too late then. It's too late then, because now you've caused a conflict between the two of you, because I couldn't trust you enough to answer the question. Now, how can I trust you enough to be telling me the right thing? You might just be against my friends. It's a lot that comes out of all of this. So the article, the last sentence that we were going over before the show ended, the article. Many teenagers spend a lot of time thinking and talking about being in a relationship. In these years, teenage relationships might last only a few weeks or months. It's normal for children to have no interest in romantic relationships until their late teens. Some choose to focus on schoolwork, sport, or other interests. Now, in this particular paragraph, we're talking about children, but how many of us have had multiple relationships relationships that only last for a few weeks or a few months? Think about it for a minute. What is the relationship between those early years for us and these latter years now? You see the conditioning here, and how the conditioning never left? How's the same thing happening in your life today as an adult? Think about that for a minute. If that's still happening in your life today, that's something that definitely needs to be looked at. And I certainly have been one to have to ponder this thought over and over again, having been married multiples of times. Yeah, I look at the relationships that I had with others in those younger years, as far back as I can see. And sometimes, we don't look far enough. We restrict where we want to look, and we only look in certain places for the answers. And then some of us don't want to look at all, because it's easier to continue to go through life and blame others for your condition. When you know better, you should do better. But it also talked about here how some choose to focus on schoolwork, sport, or other interests. That also is a contributor to some of these short-term relationships that are had in the younger years, and the same now as adults, because we begin to grow up. We begin to shake off the boy. We begin to shake off the girl, and we start coming into those young adulthood years. And according to Freud, young adulthood doesn't end until 39. And we place a lot of emphasis on people once they're 18 being adults. You need to be grown now. We tell them all the way up to that year, when you get grown, you can do what you want to do. You can go where you want to go. You can do this and you can do that. But what is grown? Predicated on age? That's another part of the problem. We keep factoring numerics into the equation that is grounded in something that is far beyond our capacity to understand, which is the human being. We don't understand ourselves. We don't. There's still things that we're learning, right? But once we conceptualize, that aspect of humanity, then we, in fact, are playing a role that we're not deserving of, and that we don't have the ability to be. And that's the power greater than us all. You can't get into the mind of God. God can get into your mind. But you can't possibly begin to understand the condition of man. But you can understand yourself and why it is that you do some of the things that you do and bring about change. And understand that everything you do is influencing somebody. Somebody is paying attention. Even if it's one person, somebody is paying attention. And they're taking that information from you. But the ones who usually get the wrath of that bad information are those closest to us. Those are the ones who experience our less endearing traits. Those are the ones who, see life through a different lens because of the lens that you put on them. You know, like when you go to the eye doctor, he flips this and flips that. Is that clear? Well, what is that? What about this side? What about that side? He does all of that. Well, that's what happens in life and growing up and developing. You change lenses. Your lenses change based on your environment. That's how your lens changes. And you never get a chance to look at life through your own lens from your point of birth. You never get a chance to, because everybody keeps telling you something else. Everybody keeps giving you something different. That's what everybody does. So you got to keep changing these lenses, and you think that you have clarity, and you find that you don't have clarity because you come upon another circumstance that doesn't have the same outcome, and you're wondering, well, why is this a negative outcome when this one was a good one? And the information that you were given about it being negative, you disregarded because you wanted to try for yourself, and you felt like it was a good situation, and then you later found out the other side to it is the part that you were being told before you entered into it. So now you're flip-flopping within yourself because you're good with the circumstance, but then you're uncomfortable with the circumstance at the same time. It's like inhaling and exhaling at the same time. That's what you're ultimately doing. And that's where the level of stress comes into play, especially in these younger years. And you see so many kids become withdrawn, and they're isolative, and they stay away from you, most importantly, because they don't trust you now because you give them bad information, and then they've been damaged by those around them who they've chosen to get involved with. So let's talk about that. Back to the article, first crushes. Before your child starts having relationships, she or he might have one or more crushes. An identity crush is when your child finds someone that she or he admires and wants to be like. A romantic crush is the beginning of romantic feelings. It's about your child imagining another person as perfect or ideal. This can tell you a lot about the things that your child finds attractive in people. Romantic crushes tend not to last very long because ideas of perfection break down when your child gets to know the other person better. But your child's intense feelings are real. So it's best to take crushes seriously and not make fun of them. I can tell you how many crushes I had on some teachers, right? But they were real. They were real, man. I had a gym teacher, man. I remember her well in elementary school, Miss Gian Pietro, right? She was a tall, statuesque white woman. She had this black curly hair that was like shoulder length, and she was the English teacher, and then she was also the phys ed teacher. And she would wear like a bodysuit and the fishnet stockings with the big holes in them. And man, I would lose my damn mind when she would come around. Yeah, I would lose my mind. But she wasn't the first teacher. It was, other teachers as I, went through school. And then there were family members. There were friends of the family. Listen, we have to talk about that because we act like, oh, you can't like your cousin. Well, I do. And how many of us have had that cousin, and still have that cousin today in our adult years, be like, boy, if you want my cousin, you would be my wife. You would be my husband. So just imagine, well, you can't really imagine, but just try to remember what it was like for you and your first crush, what it felt like, how you reacted to it, what your life looked like on a daily basis. Like, I just couldn't wait to have Jim. I wasn't no athlete. I just wasn't that guy, right? But I couldn't wait to get to Jim. I could not wait. How many, do you realize that how many relationships begin in the workplace, in school, in any of those venues where you are always in contact with that person. You're always having conversation with that person. You're always seeing that person. And this is the same thing that we're talking about here. We're like they're imagining this person being perfect or ideal, right? You know, they always sharp, dress nice haircut, keep their nails done, all this kind of stuff. They're well spoken and all these other things. But you're seeing them in an environment where in most cases, there's a level of professionalism that should be taking place. And there's just some things that you don't do in that environment. You follow me? So you're seeing a person in, I like how they operate. They come to work on time to do this, do that, to keep a job, right? They've been here, it don't happen. And it's the same way with teenagers with their parents. See, it's easy to say to a child, like your mom or your dad, and this is the kind of relationship we're supposed to have. And, I'm not your friend, but I can be a friendly parent, but not be your friend. But if we're going to build a trusting relationship and I'm going to learn how to do that as a child, I have to have that with you first. And what happens is when at these years, these teen years, right? If I don't have that relationship with you, then I'm going to find somebody. And this is where we go into the area of, at this age, when children don't have their parents actively involved, they begin to gravitate towards others who they perceive as being mother images, who they perceive as being these father-like images. That's a part of it. Another part of it is teaching me to have relationships with the other gender. Because how you treat my mother or how you treat my father is going to be affixed in my mind. And that's how I'm going to begin to look at how I engage the other sex. Right? And again, I don't get into uh, the conversation about being gay, lesbian, transsexual, any of those things. Just talking about sexuality, period. Whatever, whoever you're attracted to is where all of this starts. And how the parent, the caretaker, responds, reacts to these things is of the utmost importance and critical to the child's self-perception as well. Right? So whatever the attraction is, relationships are being formed. Relationships are being formed. If I see women talk to a particular manner, how am I going to feel as a woman? If it's behavior from a man. My relationship with a woman, as a woman, how is that developed? And that begins with me, my mom, whoever that caretaker is. So you have to look at all of those things because all those things are part of shaping one's condition as well. On top of my attraction to others too, which we talked about in the previous shows, in terms of as a child, the toddler, we talked about what from toddler to 3, we talked 3 to 6, and then so on and so forth. But when you look at those years and look at those shows and the things I talked about how a child sees their body, what happens when a child sees another child's body and what they think about that child's body. That's another part of their sexuality developing. So again, everything's about what I see, what I'm told, what I feel. Because you can't dispute somebody's feelings, regardless of anything. You can't dispute anybody's feelings. You can't tell me how I shouldn't feel. I feel that way about that person. I feel that way toward that person. I'm attracted to that person. When you talked about here, the identity crush is when your child finds someone that she or he admires and wants to be like. So if my self-perception has been negatively formed in my household by you, but then I have somebody outside telling me how cute I am, what happens? Girl overweight, underweight, whatever that little boy's flavor is, whatever that other person, right? They're the ones who begins to tell that child about how they see themselves, right? Nah, what you mean? Your mother told you was fat and you need to go on a diet. Nah, girl, here, take this ice cream sandwich. Shit, you look good. Right? No, I don't be that. I'm just not. I'm being crass about it, a little dark in it. But I'm just saying that that's actually what happens. You know, we're going out for ice cream. Oh no, well, I'm not going to eat it. And my mom told me this, that I'm getting fat and I need to. You understand what I'm saying? It's those kind of things that are said. So how do I feel about myself? Depending on the gender that it's coming from, right? Will also influence how I see myself. So you have a lot of factors here. First is how I see myself and how I see others and my attraction to gender, male or female, right? What is my attraction there, right? And having an open discussion with a caretaker about those things. Because we can put our own stuff into it all day. Well, you're not supposed to do this, and you're not supposed, we weren't created. Listen, I hear you. But you're responsible for somebody's life. Have open dialogue with your child. Own decision. But don't let you be the influencer of your child standing on a stool in their bedroom. Be real careful. Tread real lightly when you're having these discussions. That's one of the biggest contributors to our relationships today with one another, because of the misinformation. Relationships shouldn't be difficult. They shouldn't be. But we have absorbed so much stuff, and then we beat up on each other's stuff, because we're in such disagreement. Listen, it's yours. It belongs to you. Don't impose it upon me. I won't impose mine upon yours. And when I do, or when you do, we need to talk about it. And we need to be grown and say, hey, you know what? You're right. I do need to address that. And I'm going to do something about it. Because the last thing I want to do is to hurt you. But most importantly, I don't want to continue to hurt myself. It's so much work that we have to continue to do. And everybody's not ready to do the work. You are where you are at the time and place that you are, and so forth for everybody else around you. People are not going to be where you are. Finding someone where you are, that's the challenge. But then there's other factors that come into play that cause you to get diverted. A lot of things happen on the way to grandmother's house. Little Red Riding Hood. She was going to grandmother's house, but she got distracted. The wolf. And then you later find you're actually the wolf. So which wolf are you feeding? But anywho, so then you have the romantic crush, right? And again, this is, oh man, listen, I can tell you some stories, but I'm not. But I was the guy, I'd carry your books home for you, walk you to your door. And I get bumped out of the way by the good for nothing, want to do nothing, who you just get so giddy about because of how he acts, and I'm just a good guy, and but anywho, so I'd carry books home. I do those kind of things. I sit on the step and talk with you, have nice conversation with you, sit on the swings, and then here come the good for nothing, want to do nothing, dude, and you just, and that's how it happens. I was very thin, very fragile, light bright, damn near white, but I always saw myself as that little kid on the sand, with the jocks out playing volleyball, and the dude kicking sand in my face while I'm sitting there with my girl. Right? You know, I don't know if some of y'all might remember the comic book. It had that little ad in there, and that's how I used to see myself when I was young like that. And it took a while for me to come out of that. But when I came out of it, I came out of it because of my own condition, because of my own stuff that was going on, you know, in my home, stuff that was going on outside of the home, you know, in the hood. 13, having sex with, you know, a grown woman. There was a lot of things that influenced my condition, and I came out of that, and I became real aggressive. And I talk about that in my film, uh, Why Are You My Ex Too? That, you know, having sex at a young age greatly impacts, you know, our psyche. And we really need to get in touch with that. It's going to happen, right? And we need to better prepare children to deal with these kind of things. But the romantic crush, it don't last for long because, you know, after a while you be like, oh, she ain't all that deep. Because I always hung around people who were older than me. You know, I gravitated towards the old heads. We had real old heads back in the 60s and 70s. And somewhere along the line in the 80s, they just like, I don't know what the hell that happened with them. You know, and they can't blame it on crack cocaine because they was already into a whole different flavor before that. 60s and 70s, it was heroin anyway, right? So let's get that real. But anywho, yeah, so, you know, a romantic relationship can happen even today. And that's what often happens. We have romantic interludes, and then we wonder, like, what happened? You know, we wonder what happened because that's what it was. It was a romantic encounter. It was like Calgon. It just took you away from the stresses and strains of some of the things that you had endured. It was like a breath of fresh air to meet somebody who can have things together. Yeah. So, but when it happens, you got to take it seriously because I can tell you, like, I was broke up when we broke up, and a lot of times we didn't break up. I broke up because we was never in something, right? It was just me, you know, that crush, that romantic crush, right? And I'm all in love and I'm doing this and doing that. I'm thinking like we got something going on, but it's in my mind that we got something going on. Yeah, you know, it's just like that. So here we are. We're at early teenage relationships. Back to the article. Early teenage relationships. Younger teenagers usually hang out together in groups. They might meet up with someone special among friends and then gradually more time with that person alone. If your child wants to go out alone with someone special, talking about it with him or her can help you get a sense of whether he or she is ready. Does she want a boyfriend or girlfriend, or does he or she? It's speaking to he, not try to be general. Does he want a boyfriend or girlfriend just because his friends do? And the wording here is in alignment with what I was just talking about because it says, does he friend or girlfriend just because his friends do? Does he think it's the only way to go out and have fun? Or does he want to spend time getting to know someone better? If the person your child is interested in is younger or older, it could be worth mentioning that people of different ages might want different things from relationships. Real important to understand. Yeah. Of different ages might want different things from different relationships. Yeah. And again, it's not even the fact of, okay, I like this older girl, I like this younger girl, and this is what, because there were women who was on my top as a teenager, right? So again, looking at that relationship, we laughed, joke, kiki, hey, what's going on? How you doing? Come here, give me a hug. How's your mama? But it's real important when Um, and this is for both males and females because we don't look at this for males. Uh, but when a little girl, with a young girl, 16 years old, meets somebody who's 19, right? There's some assumptions made. Not looking at maybe he's not ready for sex either. Maybe he's focused on college and all those things already, but you make that assumption. But she's still underage, right? She's still underage, and that's the first thing that has to be talked about. You're underage. You may have an attraction, and if you really like him, you need to understand one thing: he can go to prison. You'll go back home. Yeah. But strangely enough, boys don't get that same conversation. Boys get high fives. My man, yeah. That's a problem. That's a problem. And that's another area that needs to be talked about more. And for those of you who may not have seen my recent post, I just posted last night, late last night, my third film, the second of a series, Words from the Wise, uh, the Boyhood Chronicles, will be out December 2019. It's fully animated, fully animated. And the first film was Words from the Wise, the Fatherhood Chronicles. 2019, Words from the Wise, the Boyhood Chronicles. Yeah. But back to the article. It's important that you get a sense of where that child's thinking is, because it talks about that here. You know, well, Mom, I want to go to the movie with Joseph. He's a friend. He just asked me, to out, and I want to go out with him. I like him. He's fun. You know, we get along together. We're just going to the movie. Okay. Well, tell me about Joe. You should have already known about Joe, but let's just say for the fact that you don't know about Joe. Well, tell me about Joe. How'd you meet? Okay. What are some of the things y'all talk about? You want to ask questions to answer the questions within yourself so you know how to approach situations later on. Not necessarily then, but later on when you're having a conversation again about Joe. Hey, how's Joe? Oh, he's all right. You know, he hasn't been to school for about 2 or 3 days. Hey, well, what's going on with him? I know he's having problems at home. Remember, all this stuff is part of your child's condition. So your child begins to gravitate towards this person because they care, because this is a romantic attraction, maybe a crush. But if they're caring, that could be a red flag, because they could begin to do things for that person that they might not need to be doing. They could be being prepped and groomed by that person. It's a lot of things that happen in it. So you want to know where that child's head is at. You want to know where this is going. You want to know how deep it is. But it's important that it concludes the paragraph with the sentence that, it could be that people of different ages might want different things. You want to have a candid conversation. Very candid conversation. Okay? This is not the time when you want to uh, water it down. Yo, he gonna do some things to you. He old. He's older than you. She's older than you. Listen, they got some things going on that you ain't been open to yet. You've heard about these things, but you might be having some kind of idea about these things. But it's a whole different ball game when you get into these things, because it's not just going to be a one-time shot. Each other like this right now, that what you're talking about, it's a good chance that once this person and you get to, and y'all do what older people do, you're gonna be in trouble. All right, so you want to about that. Okay, so they have this paragraph that they've highlighted in the article that I want to read to you. The most influential role models for teenagers. I know what's wrong with you, and I'm tripping over words this morning because I ain't had that caffeine to get my mind straight. The most influential role models for teenagers are the grown-ups in their lives. You can be a positive role model for respectful relationships and friendships by treating your partner, friends, and family with care and respect. Talking about both meaningfully. Let your child know you think everyone is equal and valuable. And again, it goes back to, right, we get into this whole thing about people's sexuality and areas of sexuality that we're in disagreement with, but we're also teaching the child that too. And when we start having conversation with the child and we're teaching them, we're teaching them who to like and who not to like and why not to like that person, because they're going to get this and they're going to go for doing this or they're going to go to hell for doing that. That's not appropriate. It has what you choose as your choose is your guidance. You in fact can give your children the guidance based on what is written, but you don't teach hate. That's not what we do. That's not what our practice is one thing. But to say those people you stay away from because they're the ones you're going to hell. But you got to look at your own hell that you're creating as well. And again, I don't have to be for or against anything. It's not my life. It's not my life. You can't change someone's life. You don't have that power. You don't have that authority to change somebody from who they are. You can alter their condition, but they're still going to be that same person with an altered condition. That's all. That's all. So we got to tread lightly when we're talking about sexuality with children. We have to. But they have to be respectful of everybody. Everybody. It's not get away from. That's not what I want you to do. And then once you learn that that's what that child's development is, then you have to deal with that differently. I don't want you doing this. I don't want you doing that. You ain't supposed to. You can have that conversation all day long. That wedge is getting deeper and deeper and deeper. And that's not for you to do. That's not, you're not the one to judge. You're not. And again, I'm not going to get into conversation about, sexuality on that level because it's not been my experience. Universal. How you talk to other people is universal. Accepting people for being who they are is universal. Period. Period. You teach a child to be respectful because at the end of the day, what you put upon me as far as the practice, because this is the guidance that you have chosen, and you putting that upon me. Listen, my life is my life. What you've chosen is what you've chosen. You're responsible to pass that on. You're responsible to teach that which is written. But at the end of the day, my condition, my sexuality is mine. And I can spend a lifetime concealing it, or I can spend a lifetime revealing it and be me and love others. And for those who have an issue with me, that's their issue, and me not internalize their issue. Yeah. We get into this high and mighty thing sometime, man, and we start killing. We're killing people. That's why we don't have relationships with so many of our youth today, because we're not open to things, because we want to bash somebody upside the head because of what we believe, not looking at our own sinful life. You want to know what's wrong with the children. Yeah. Try to figure out what's right with the children. Back to the article. Talking about teenage relationships with your child. Your family plays a big part in the way your child thinks about teenage relationships. Your family plays a big part in the way your child thinks about teenage relationships. Your family. plays a big part. Your family. What happens in your home? How you deal with one another. This is another one of those things that I'm doing fatherhood classes. Looking at the relationship uh, in a full capacity. They're looking at it from the capacity of self. What she did to me. What she said to me. What were your intentions when you met? When you connected with her? What were your intentions? Right? Let's look at that first. Because one of the first questions I always ask, by show of hands, how many of y'all even like your child's mother? How many of you even like your child's mother? Just show of hands. Just show of hands. Yeah, start there. Because again, it's that personal responsibility you have to begin to take. And when you look at that, you look at those relationships in the home, right? So when they have siblings who are in relationships and their siblings talk to them and they talk to their sibling and they hear all these different things, they are looking at their siblings in a different light because they feel like, okay, depending on the age gap, like that they understand. You know, so if I'm 7 and my sibling is 13, whether it's male or female, doesn't matter. But the information I'm getting from that person, right, based on their gender, and the information that they tell me about the other person based on the gender of the other person, will begin to shape and form my concept of relationships, right? But I'm more apt to have conversation with them than I am with mom, dad. There's always grandmom. Grandmom just has, and granddad, they always have different places. They're in a different place. It's like a whole different conversation when you talk to, to grandma, or grandpa. You get it's like they come from another zone, and that they tell you stuff to be like, wow. It's like you can almost walk across water for that moment because they have uplifted you so much, and right? Well, in most cases, not all cases. But you understand what I'm saying? So that's why I talked about your family plays a big part in the way your child thinks about teenage relationships. Yeah. You take them over to some people's houses, family members' houses, and they look at how those kids act and interact with one another, interact with you as an adult, those kind of things. Very significant. When you back to the article, when you encourage conversations about feelings, friendships, and family relationships, it can help your child feel confident to talk about teenage relationships in general. If your child knows what respectful relationships looks like, she can relate this directly to romantic relationships. If you're following me here, see, there are a lot of dots that have to be connected, but they have to be encouraged to talk about these things in a general sense. Before it's personalized, I'm going to talk to you in a general sense. So, what was it like for you when you were 12? Dad, what was it like for you when you were 9? Did you have a boyfriend? Did you have a girlfriend? Did you have somebody you liked? Right? They're talking in a general sense. Right? They're asking you specifically, but to them, it's a generalized conversation because they're trying to see where they're going. They're trying to understand some things about relationships. And then they begin to form their own. But they want to have these conversations. And if you keep shutting them down because your own stuff, I can tell you a lot of times males get caught up in the side of what that male's going to be doing to his little girl. Yeah, he's going to be doing things to my baby. those things that I do to her mama, and the things that I do with other girls, other women. He gonna be doing them things. I can't have that. Like, I can't have him doing them things to my baby. I know you. I know you. Yeah, I used to be like you. Your boy. You want something. I know. Yeah, yeah. I had 3 daughters, and yeah, I'm glad that I got my mind right before they got older, um, and just deal with their feelings and allow them to express their feelings about a particular person that they like. And important, because I can go into my head and be like, dude, you gonna stay away from my daughter. You know, I know how you ride. It's about their feelings. It's about my daughter's feelings. It's about what it is that they're dealing with. Those kind of things. It's not about the other person, uh, be it male or female. It's like, in the general sense, relationships are relationships. They all have the same content: insanity. Not all of them, but insanity is not about the other person. It's about listening that you have prior to that relationship, and how much stuff you have to work through in order to trust somebody, in order to begin to have fun with somebody, in order to, you know, um, uh, be engaged in a capacity where you've kind of shut down. Yeah, it's deep, and it gets really heavy sometimes, and that's why relationships are short. Not only do you learn about the other person, you learn some things about yourself. I'm not ready to deal with that right now. It's just, and it's easier to not deal with it. It's easier than to confront it and be able to have a healthy relationship. Uh, these conversations might mean that your child will feel more comfortable sharing his feelings with you as he starts to get interested in others. And the conversations can also bring up other important, like treating other people kindly, breaking up kindly, and respecting other people's boundaries. Yeah, I always tell people that. I said, well, I didn't, even though the relationships ended, and I was hurt. I didn't see the need for it to be ugly. Like, what's the point there? I mean, if you just want to be in denial about the contribution you made to the demise of this relationship, you can do that. But what's the point? There's two good people in a situation that didn't work for them. That's all it is. That's all it is. Sure, we get angry, and we think the person should do this, and we have these expectations, and we have these hopes and these dreams, these ideas and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, listen, you have the right to be who you are. I have the right to be who I am. I gave it a shot. You gave it didn't work. We'll just move on. There's no need for us to be disrespectful. There's no need for us to be hateful towards one another. There's no need for that disdain to trickle down into our parental responsibilities. And that's what it often does. And that's why we have what we have again with our youth. Mad about the failed relationship as boyfriend and girlfriend or husband and wife, that you lost sight of the fact that you're still mine. What about that relationship? So, again, you need to have these conversations. They're really important to have, because if you don't have this dialogue with your children, somebody else is going to have it with them. It's a reality. Somebody else is going to have that conversation with them. They're going to get bad information in most cases, but they should be getting the information from you, and you should be giving them honest responses to their questions. Don't make stuff up. Don't lie. Don't become guarded. but you lie. Just tell the truth. Just tell the truth. Because if you want that relationship between you and your child to be a trusting one, right? Then you gotta be truthful. No matter what it is, you have to be truthful. Respond, age appropriately, but you have to be truthful. You have to be. But listen, we're gonna wrap this show up today, and we're gonna final episode of this 3-part series, uh, Teen Crushed. But I do want to remind you to subscribe to my Spirulina educational station right here on YouTube. Subscribe, become a subscriber, and also know that I will no longer be on and YouTube. 19 is already here. I'm stepping into it on the grind, turning it up. Got to keep turning it up, man. I'm not slowing down. I got things to do. I got places to be. I got hopes, dreams, aspirations. Let nothing stand in your way. And most of the times you'll find that it's you. Daddy's right here this last year, 11 p.m. to 11:45. I did a show. Listen, this is your life. Live it to its fullest. But make sure everybody who's around you is doing the same. If people living the 50-50 life, that other 50 is going in the wrong direction, and eventually this is 100. This is what you call one. We all in. Move away from them folks, closer to you, right? For those who are, on that track to do the right things, for each other. Build up your children. Let your children develop. Let their skills, their ideas, and all those things play out in their lives, right? Groom them. Stop telling them what they can't be. Stop telling them what not to do. They find an interest in something. Yeah, it's going to cost you a few dollars, and it's probably going to change in another 6 months to a year. At least they know you support them. They're going to find their niche, but you got to be there for them. Y'all have a great day. Thank you for joining me today on Daddy's Right Here Live, and I will see you, Steve. Peace.